What does Hanasaku Iroha actually mean in Japanese? I don't think I ever looked that up.
Uh,
Blossoms for tomorrow.
yeah, flowers.
Blossoms for Tomorrow. Okay.
Yep.
So that means that the movie's called Blossoms for Tomorrow, Home Sweet Home.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie.
I haven't either.
I should watch the movie though.
At some point.
Like, this show was genuinely just enjoyable.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you guys liked the show. I was so scared that I was so scared that I was gonna get on here and someone was gonna be like, "Oh my god, this show is so shit. I hate it so much."
Oh my god.
Like, why would we ever do that, though?
Oh my god, it was totally gonna happen. And I was like, and well, I was actually scared for one reason because I watched this show like 3 years ago, and I was like, "Oh, I gave it an 8. What does that mean? What's an 8 to me back then?" And then, so I went into rewatching the show, and I was like, I don't know if this is an 8. What if this is shit? What if I just told everybody to watch a shit show?
Well, you didn't.
Yeah. A couple episodes in, I was like, okay, yeah, this is kind of how I remember it, and this is still good.
Yeah, it took a couple of episodes for me to actually get like what the show was trying to do, because I'm used to PA Works shows like really like hitting me in the face with punches, like right as soon as the show starts off. I don't know why, but like a couple of the other ones that I've seen in the past, I felt like they just went really drama heavy, I guess.
Charlotte.
Well, yeah.
We
did eviscerate that show on the podcast. Not like really negatively, just
how is there a positive evisceration?
You've apparently
do you
never
wanna
experienced an
expound on that?
evisceration.
No, I haven't. That's
haven't
why I'm
either.
still here, Matt.
Yeah, but like it just it felt so nice because, like, I don't know, it was, for one thing, the characters I absolutely loved. Like, they were not super typical at all times. I felt like, especially just the way that the dialogue flowed in scenes and how the characters like talked to each other. I felt was very different from other shows that I've seen. Like the relationship between the mom and the daughter was very atypical, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah, and that was like the start of the show too.
Right at the beginning,
And,
yeah.
And you said that this show didn't really start off like really drama heavy, and I agree with that. But it started out in a very kind of strange way.
Yeah, because it's like, it's weird because it's like, hey, I'm your mother and I'm leaving you, and then you're gonna have to go live with your grandma because bye, I'm going off with a man, and which you would think would be like super like, oh shit. No, instead it just had like a weird peppy vibe to it almost. While it was doing that, it was so weird.
And the thing is, like, the show really threw me for a loop at the beginning because it was so peppy. Because it's, you know, on one hand, we get this whole, oh, hey, you have to go live at a completely different place because reasons kind of vibe that so many anime do. But usually it's not because, hey, my boyfriend's got a lot of debt, we're going to run off. Oh, we're not bringing you. Sorry.
Yeah, it went really dark. I saw
it. And it was compounded by being even darker by, you know, little Ohana being like, oh, well, okay, this is how it is. And it's like, honey, what?
As
what
if
do you
this
mean
has happened before,
is?
yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, holy shit, like, this is terrible if you are in such a position that this isn't surprising to you.
Yeah, I was really terrified starting off, Matt, because I didn't know what to expect going in, and I was getting, like, at least in that first episode, I was getting Nobody Knows vibes, like the Japanese live action film, which is so fucked up. It's really messed up about a mother that just abandons a bunch of children and they become orphans, and I was like, oh, please don't go there, please, I don't want to cry.
Yeah, I went in completely blind, and I was a little
but then it immediately turns itself around once she actually like gets to the place where she's going. It's like her grandma seems very, not just stern, but in the first episode she seemed particularly incredibly mean. But like you find out like even within the very next episode that she's just stern, and this is the way that she runs her business because she treats it as a business, family or no family, being there and working under her. And I don't know, I felt like they treated that really well, because it could have been like really dark, it could have been like, I don't know, Annie Hard Knock Life or something like that, but it wasn't. It was the first episode had like a strange tone where it felt like it should have been dark, but it was being peppy, and then within the next episode, they kept the same tone going, and I think I just got used to it, maybe, or maybe just the circumstances were better.
The show is really interesting, just because it's so hard to kind of explain, like the tone of the show. There's so many just nuances that I've never been able to like fully explain. Like there's a lot to it, and I'm sure that someone could adequately explain it. Every time I tried to explain it, like in my notes or whatever, it just came out as there's a lot going on, and I've not seen another show do this kind of tone blending. That's, like you're saying, it's just, I haven't seen one. There might be one out there.
Yeah, and I think that's what really helped me out with the show and made it a lot easier to watch too. Because even whenever something that should be drama heavy happens, the tone never
never felt like that.
Right. It never sways too far to like to the dark side or something like that. Terrible expression, but it's like, I don't know. I felt like the way that the tone worked is that if it was like a needle swaying left and right, it would sway slightly left and slightly right sometimes between like happy peppy and like a little bit darker and drama heavy, but it never went too far out of its range. And I think that was a strength of the show, is that it knew how to balance that needle really well, and it made every episode incredibly enjoyable. Even the ones in which like, oh shit, something's really bad happening to the inn and everybody involved in it, you never felt like it was going to end up into like this terrible situation in which they're all homeless or the inn catches fire or something like that. It always made me feel like excited for the next episode to see like how it resolved.
Right, and there's no real like tonal whiplash either. Like it doesn't go too quickly from one side to the other. Like everything is a very gradual, natural progression to, there is, some bad shit that goes down in a couple of the episodes. Like, hey, we just got scammed by a guy that said he was filming a movie, or hey, we're not gonna have the inn passed down, or yada yada. But everything is like resolved in a very gradual manner. Like there's no weird deus ex machina or something that just instantly makes everything better. Like there are some episodes, like the end of the film arc where it ends like, hey, we got scammed. Okay, we'll just try not to get scammed again.
Yeah, and I thought that also was a strength in that episode specifically, or the couple of episodes, because it went over 2 episodes, where they're filming the movie. It's like when you first see the episode in which they're filming the movie, you're like, oh, this is definitely a strange departure from the rest of the show, in which like, a movie place shows up. All the characters are still the same and everything else is still the same, but I wasn't sure how it was going to end, in that like how they made a movie and how and I wasn't sure where it was going to go into the next episode. But then it went to the next natural place that after the fact just seemed like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, where it's just they didn't actually get this big massive project where it was a huge movie. They got scammed and then they were out money and the inn has to deal with that. And I was like, oh, that ending makes a lot more sense than if like suddenly they air the film but it's not well received and it hurts the inn's reputation or something like that. That didn't make as nearly as much sense to me. And I think it's just that the writing through the show makes everything come across very very consistent, I guess, in like the tone and what it's trying to do. I don't know if I'm explaining this well. I apologize.
No, but it makes sense. Like the show is very consistent in how it tries to present itself. I know I say this about a lot of the shows that we watch, but it very much knows what it is trying to do. It's not often that there is any like weird change in genre or anything of that nature. Like what you said, Kyle, there is some dramatic aspects to it, but it never swings entirely too far one way or the other.
Yeah, and I think that's a credit to the writing, which, by the way, I absolutely love the writing for the show. Um, which, like, it seems strange to say for like a slice of life, but like it was a slice of life that was very well done. It was like there was an earlier episode in which like it was able to explain everything without actually like having the characters discuss it or like comment on it within the episode. There was an earlier one in which like Ohana's mom comes to visit, and her grandmother, who's in charge of the inn, like is not on good terms with her mom at all. But what I really liked about it is that it's like they show the mom coming specifically because she works at a company and was going to review the inn, and re-review it after she gave it a very bad review. Um, and like when she comes in, you expect her to be an asshole because up to this point, like she's shown herself to not be there for her child. She's an asshole. She thinks more of herself than others, a lot of times. But whenever she does show up, it's like, yeah, she does say a lot of negative things about the inn, but she's doing it through critique, and she also says a lot of positive things, and she actually like approaches it in a very interesting way, that I liked a lot. And what I liked about that is that like as she's doing this, you can see that there's more to this character than just being the asshole mom that's selfish and only thinks of herself or something like that. They added a lot more depth to that character in that episode, and they did the same thing with the grandmother, because up to that point we had mostly just seen the grandmother like she started off stern, but she got a little bit more lax and was a little bit more open to like her Ohana, her granddaughter. And then we start to see like why she was stern in the first place whenever the mother comes back, and you start to see like a lot of the grading up against each other throughout that episode. And it allows both characters to be explored really well within just one episode, and none of the characters necessarily comment on it. It's all done just through the actions and what's done within the episode, rather than just some weird exposition of like two characters in the background like talking about it.
Yeah, there's I guess that's something that still really surprised me about this show, even watching it the second time, was just the fact that the characters themselves just got explored. I feel like every character, there's a lot of characters in this show, and
It's a
each
decent
one
cast,
kind
yeah.
of gets yeah, the cast is pretty extensive. And I feel like each character got explored pretty well, and it never really felt like they had arcs or anything.
Yeah.
Like it just kind of felt like we just learned more about them as we were around them more, which I thought that was pretty interesting.
And I
Um,
also, yeah, and I also liked that the characters developed as the show went on, just because that's the way that it worked and that's the way life worked. It wasn't like some other shows where they developed solely because of the actions of the main protagonist or something like that. No, it was just we are peeking into these people's lives, and as they grow and as they get older, they're starting, and as they work together, they're just developing on their own and becoming their own individuals.
Yeah, or there wasn't any character arc either where it was like, oh, they developed and then now they didn't develop anymore. That
Yeah,
development was
like the
pointless.
next episode comes around and they're still acting the same way that they did before or something like that.
Yeah, I've seen that done before.
Now, like, granted, there are like specific episodes that hone in on specific characters kind of throughout
Yeah.
the series, but it's like you said, they undergo a good deal of development in these particular episodes, but it's not like, okay, well, your episode's done and you're just set in stone for the rest of the series. Like
Right.
it is a living dynamic cast in that sense.
It is a true slice of life story, I feel. Like,
Yes, because of that
And-
dynamic cast.
hmm and I guess this is kind of strange, but I feel like this was one of the first slice of life shows I really saw, and I guess this kind of ruined me in the way that a lot of other slice of life shows, when you say slice of life, they're not like this. They're very different. They're
No,
similar,
they're-
but they're different. Like
They're
they do this, they
usually
try to do the same thing. Like
yeah, and a lot of
it's
them
just
fall into the trope of like cute girls are in cute things, so it's a lot of like antics and skits and like smaller segments within a world, and there's not really overall character development.
yeah, there's that, and then there's other ones that are like where I feel like nothing fucking happens. I don't know. Are those even like slice of life? Like are shows like Flying Witch slice of life? I
Yeah,
know,
I
Yeah,
think we would definitely consider that.
I know
Flying
they're like
Flying Witch is a slice of life. It's just it's a slice of life in which like it really, like you said, nothing happens. It's beautiful, it's pretty to look at, and the characters are nice enough, but like yeah, just nothing happens.
Yeah, but I mean, in that sense, it really is just a slice of life. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
there's not often a lot that goes on in our everyday lives that's noteworthy.
I guess
So
would the difference be slice of life and then this show is a chunk of life? Because like
you fucking dork.
oh my god.
I mean, to be fair though, like it does take place over the course of like what, like 6 months to a year.
Something like that. I'm pretty sure it's not quite a year, but it's definitely at least 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a length of time.
We get to see snow at some point.
We do.
We did like once.
The
Twice?
last episode.
Yeah. Which I thought was funny. It was like one of the last shots of the last episode. And I was like, oh, there you go. You got your snow in there somewhere. It's a true anime. It is only a true anime if it has snow.
Real anime for real fans.
Real
Oh.
snow.
No, and I guess on the flip side of like a pure slice of life in which nothing happened, there's also the slice of life in which it's just super super drama heavy, and it seems like just there's everything happening at once. Like, and those ones typically seem pretty crazy to me because like sometimes it's like all this dramatic and like really terrible shit happening in the span of like 3 or 4 months for these characters or something like that. It's crazy.
Oh man, what would be a good example of that? For some reason,
Was...
Hana Yamada's coming to my mind.
That's
but
what I was.
Yes.
That's what I was thinking of.
Hana Yamada is a great example of not doing that shit well, because it's one of those that was peppy and that wanted to do character development over the course of like, I guess it was like maybe a year, 6 months, probably 6 months actually for Hana Yamada, but it just doesn't do it well. Like they'll have a really happy scene that ends in a really funny joke, and then immediately after the joke happens, it's like, ha 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 ha, my mother's dying, and I'm like, oh sweet goodness, where did that come from?
Yeah, and those shows do not work very well because they do exactly what you were talking about earlier. They take that needle of slice of life and drama, and they just like swing it back and forth,
Yes.
like from one end to the other. And this show doesn't do that, as you said. It
No,
just
it
doesn't.
keeps
And
everything consistent,
it
which
d-
I enjoyed.
And this show to me is like the perfect blend of slice of life and drama. It's perfect. Like
Yes.
this is what I want.
It's not too much drama that it becomes like a slug to get through 26 episodes. That's not to say that some shows like Scum Swish are necessarily a slug to get through because of the drama. It makes it a little bit harder to just kind of like, oh boy, I'm so excited for the next episode. No, for Scum Swish, you're just like, oh man, what's gonna happen next episode?
Well, and the nice thing about Hanasaku Iroha with its drama is that its drama isn't a bunch of bullshit.
No, it's very
Yeah.
realistic.
There are very few, if any, situations where I was sitting through something and I saw, oh hey, check it out, drama is being put forth by someone fucking mishearing something and then not talking to anyone. Like it's actual like interpersonal issues or something of that nature that genuinely comes from perhaps personalities grading against one another or just not getting to know people yet, or actual in related or customer related issues. Like,
and when things do happen, people talk to each other about it, and there's actual conversation going, which adds more to the like situation, because sometimes that conversation won't end happily or something like that. They'll start grading against each other more or something like that. But there's, like you said, there's never a misunderstanding situation necessarily. Like the closest we get for that is that like the girl who's a chef in training, I want to say
Michi
Yeah, Michi. But I was like, no, wait, that's ramen.
or Minko, whatever. You can
Yeah,
call her
her full name or her real name Minko. Um, she like the closest thing that I could think of is in the one of the few times that they actually had an arc surrounding the school, which I loved. That most of this took place outside of school instead of just their high school lives. It was refreshing. But the one of the few times that I can think is during the school festival. It was like she made amu rice for the person that she liked, and she put ketchup on it and wrote love, and then the misunderstanding was that he looked over and he saw that somebody else had the same thing written on their rice, and he was like, oh, okay, they just do that at this shop. It's like that's the closest thing that we got to a misunderstanding throughout the whole entire series.
Yeah,
And it was once.
and even that though, like her intention wasn't for that to be like a confession or anything,
Right.
you know. So
She just felt like doing it because she wanted to. She's bottled this up for so long. She wanted to express it.
right, so you know, it's not necessarily too far into that spectrum.
Yeah.
But like the nice thing is like all of this drama in this sort of sense, you know, it does bring about dialogue between the characters, like you said. You know, if something comes up, the characters actually talk to one another, and beyond that, you know, the dialogue actually serves a purpose to give us further development of the characters.
Yes.
It's not just like it's not drama and progression for the sake of moving the story along. I mean, it does do that, but it does it in a meaningful way
Yes.
because you know it actually gives us a better view of, you know, how these characters work and think and how they interact with each other in this, you know, little cramped ecosystem, you know, that is the Kisui Inn.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that, and I love whenever series have every time that there is dialogue for a reason. Because it bothers the crap out of me whenever watching a show, and I'm like, you could legitimately just cut this entire scene and it would make no difference. And like Hanasaku Iroha was wonderful in that way. Every single scene was, you know, mattered in some way, and the dialogue mattered in some way to either the progression of the story or the progression of just the characters.
Yeah, and I definitely can respect the show that just knows when to shut up.
Yeah, and
Like,
honestly, there were several moments that I thought worked pretty well, especially for Ohana, who typically would do something and then something suddenly happens to make her rethink that, and so she spends time alone thinking about it. And you got a lot of really beautiful shots out of that. I thought whenever she's like walking around or she goes to the shrine up in the mountains and looks back at the house and stuff like that, in which there isn't necessarily always a monologue going over top of that, and I thought that worked really well.
yeah, the show itself is very interesting just because of what you said. There's not a like there's dialogue between the characters that never felt useless, and there's also the fact that it kind of almost felt like some of the slice of life shows that I've seen where they're like, oh, they're trying to stress like you know, wow, look how beautiful the away from the city is, and there was a little bit of that vibe, but it wasn't really full on.
No, it felt like they were kind of trying to push more of just like home is where you are, and family are the people that you surround yourself with.
Yeah,
That felt like the couple of messages that they were trying to push, not necessarily like, you know, the country's better than the city or the city's better than the country. And they even kind of comment on that, I think, on the second to last episode.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
yeah, what you said, yeah.
because the guy Ko said, you know, I never really thought that the city was boring, but I did whenever you left, and I found out that really I just enjoy whatever environment that you're in, which was a sweet little thing to say, by the way. What a
Yeah, and there was also like a
guy.
semi-consistent tone going on where a lot of the characters that were, you know, in this more rural area, you know, found this sort of exoticism in Ohana when she said, "Hey, I'm from Tokyo," and everyone's like, "Oh my God, Tokyo!"
And the
Tell
kids
me
in the
more.
class, yeah, the kids in the
Yeah.
class, I remember one of the first things they said is, oh, I knew she looked so fashionable. It's like they're already justifying it even though they didn't think about it prior.
Yeah, it's like, "Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's a designer hair clip," and Ohana's like, "I got this for 300 yen."
Yeah.
Like, this is a $30 hair clip, guys. But you know, it does kind of touch on this sort of idea of the exoticism and the sort of fantasization of city life.
But at the
And
same
that
time, it also shows what's good about the country as well.
Right, exactly. And I was gonna say it's more like it more presents a sort of commentary of how there is such a seeming obsession with the city and a lot of things.
Hmm.
And you know, you can see that in a lot of anime these days as well, because you know, in the last couple years, so many like highly popular anime that sort of follow this format do take place in, you know, these clustered, you know, areas or different cities or subdivisions of, you know, urban Japan. And so
Right.
it's kind of interesting to consider in that respect.
Well, I think it was kind of doing a similar thing to what Your Name was doing necessarily. Was like, you know, the because the girl in Your Name thought the city looked beautiful, but the guy in Your Name thought the country was gorgeous.
Right.
Yeah, it is a little similar to that, actually.
Yeah. And there's, I mean, Your Name goes into much deeper things about that, but I thought that at least on that level, they both were trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, but I think one of the things about Hanasaku Iroha is that also it's not like that was the only thing it was trying to do. I felt like it did so many things. There was a lot of things that it did. And none of them were like highly prevalent. They were all just kind of concurrently happening. And the anime kind of became what you like, you could focus in on an aspect of it and enjoy that aspect. Like, you could do that with a bunch of individual aspects of the show. You could do the romance thing. You could do slice of life. You can do character development. You can do
coming of age. Yeah.
Yeah, you can do any of that. And there's a lot of just different parts of the show, and you can enjoy all of them. Like, they were all very good.
Yeah, and
Very
I
well
liked
done.
and I liked that it explored them all, and it also used its cast of characters in order to explore them all. Instead of just like trying to pin everything on a single character, they kind of like they kind of spread that out so that you get a lot of different characters. Where you get, like, you know, Ohana is trying to figure out who she is, and then you have a couple of other characters that are just like Miko is, you know, trying to figure out what she actually wants. She knows who she is and what she wants to do, but she wants to figure out like what she should do from a love perspective and the romance. And then I thought it was good that they used their cast of characters to explore a lot of these different things, which I think we said previously also allowed them to put a little bit more focus and emphasis on particular characters instead of just one for certain episodes. And I felt like that made me feel a lot more a lot more empathy and or rather to empathize with different characters more, not just the main character. And it also allowed me to explore the world a little bit more, not just through Ohana's eyes.
Yeah, and I think it's really good that I mean, their cast of characters. I'm glad it utilized its cast of characters, because I mean, I think we already talked about this a little bit, but there are some shows that just they have a character, and then there's some shows that have side characters and that just never get touched on. And
Yeah,
and
I
then
think
there's
we've
other
even talked
times,
about that in a couple of shows that we've watched.
yeah, and like they seem to have interesting stories, but they never go into them. Or sometimes they like have interesting stories, like they do explore them, and then
For like
it
one
doesn't really
episode.
matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, yeah. I really just like the fact that, and there's a lot of things I like about the show. I like the fact that there's a lot of characters and that they all got explored.
Yeah, and I also want to point out like something that I found on a little bit of a different subject, but also also on the same idea of just like I really like the writing, and I like what the show did with the writing and the themes that they was trying to push. You, Matt, you said that the writer for this was a woman that's worked on a bunch of different shows, right?
Yeah, it's Mario Okada. She did. Now I'm gonna list
Yeah,
off.
we had talked about that off the podcast.
Yeah. Like
Kisniver, Sakurai, this
Toradora.
Toradora.
Yeah, there's several.
There's a bunch, and they're all shows that I felt like actually had some pretty strong writing to them. At least the ones that
Yes.
at least the one that I've seen. I know that there's one that was like a Kickstarter one that I haven't seen that apparently is like hit or miss.
It's the Mayoiga. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
she did the
Moyoiga.
script writing for that.
Yeah.
She wasn't the main writer. She was just a script
Oh,
writer.
Okay.
Yeah, she just worked on part of the series composition for that one.
Well, that might explain a few things. But one of the things that I thought was really cool was one of the things that I thought was really cool was that there's this wonderful message throughout this thing of especially from a woman or a girl, in this case Ohana, and a bunch of the other characters in Japan, that she never compromises her dream or her work for the romance that she has. They started that pretty early, and that kind of like the mid-season finale. That's kind of what it pushed, is that she wanted to be with Ko, but in the end, they both kind of like agreed with each other that it just wouldn't work out. And what I really liked about that is that there's a lot of other situations, especially like male-driven shows in which there's a male protagonist, in which the female character basically just gives up her life in order to be with the man. And in this one, Ohana doesn't sacrifice that. She knows what she wants, and she knows the by that point she knows what she wants, and she knows that she wants to do this job and continue working at this end because that's what she genuinely enjoys. And so she's willing to basically put her any ideas of romance on hold if it's just not going to work out, and would sacrifice what she truly wants to do. And I thought that was a very powerful and strong message. The fact that you should take care of yourself and what you want to do, and you shouldn't necessarily like give up your dreams for the sake of somebody else.
Yeah, I think that's a good message.
And I thought that was really well done for that mid-season finale too. Like I think they stretched that over both 10, no, it was 11, 12, and 13. It was 3 episodes. And by the end of it, I was like, damn, that was a really good arc. Like
they could have cut that. They could have cut the series off right there, and it still would have been good.
Yeah, they
See,
they
that's what I was
honestly
thinking when I
could
got to
have.
that point, because I was like, wow, this 13 episodes is very strong and such a good self-contained story that the end of that episode, would have been fantastic for the end of that series. And I still think they did a good job extending to the rest of it, because while we got a lot of development for Ohana throughout those first 13 episodes or so, like the second half of the series really gave us a lot of time to get to know the rest of the cast of characters in a much deeper fashion, and that that still further enriched our understanding of Ohana as well. And so it was really nice in being able to, I guess it's not really like splitting it up between half being about Ohana and half being about the rest of the cast.
No, because we had like a little bit of
consistent
emphasis.
development for everyone.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's just like after, because I think what it is that the first core of this show, we put a little bit more focus on Ohana, but that was also because like for the first few episodes we had to see everything through her eyes because we're new to this place. Everybody else at the end had already been there. And so that was our way of establishing and getting to know the characters. So by the time that we get to the end of the first core, we know the characters very well. And so at that point we can start to look a little bit more into their lives and their ambitions, instead of just focusing on Ohana for the most part. There were some episodes that emphasized a couple of other characters, 1 through 13, but there was a little bit more of a push for Ohana, and then they blended it a lot better for like 14 onwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess what I was gonna say with my original thing was that like I loved that powerful message that they did, and they also just had really great writing for the female characters in the show, which on a personal level just made me so happy. Like I genuinely enjoyed every single one of these characters, and I thought that they were all unique and very well written, both male and female. That said, it's not like it's the greatest feminist anime in the world. There was a lot of like unchanging scenes or bath scenes or like a 12-second butt shot in the middle of the swimsuit episode 14.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that, I've read some blog posts on why people dislike the show.
Mhm.
Some people said it was a 26 episode that felt like a Hot Springs episode every single episode.
There was a lot of getting in the water naked kind of thing, and it's like, but I don't think that they put too much emphasis on the female form for a lot of those situations. I think it was just kind of a natural thing where these characters are on call and they're at work for a very large amount of their time during the day, that the only times that they have to themselves are those times in which they're like, thank fucking goodness the break, like my work shift is over and I can just relax in the tub for a second.
Yeah.
It's really a very intimate kind of moment of understanding and getting to know, deeper into these characters. Like, it wasn't voyeuristic or anything like that.
Yeah, I will argue that
it was either
some of it was a little voyeuristic, but definitely not all of it.
Yeah, on the most part.
Yeah.
A lot of it was. But I mean, they even managed to turn the beach episode into an actual substantial 2-episode arc, which was kind of impressive.
That was cool. That was actually legitimately cool. And then like, even if and then they also had early on, like episodes 2 and 3, I think, was the one in which we find out one of the characters is a pervert and he's writing erotic fiction based on some of the other characters in the show, and that always comes back as a kind of joke throughout the show, as is like, haha, sexual harassment and stuff like that. But at the same time, I don't think it was too overdone or anything like that, and it didn't detract necessarily from the characters and the rest of the show, for me anyways.
Yeah, I mean, even if you think about like episodes 2 and 3, like, there are so many ways that I'm thinking of all the different anime that I've seen with similar things, and the amount of times that it's just gone so bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, even within that episode, even within, I think it was episode 3, it was like, the end of episode 2 starts off that Ohana gets kidnapped by the perverted dude, and then at the beginning of episode 3, the perverted dude doesn't know how to tie her up properly, and she's helping him.
Yeah.
And then she starts helping him on his erotic fiction because he's in a slump, and she's like, no, I think you need to write it like this. It was like that ended way better than, for instance, like, what is that one show that came out? Raku, the bastard teacher one that's come out this season. That one had a whole thing in which, like, one of the characters gets hogtied, and then is like, there's an allusion to a possible rape that he stops, and she has no power whatsoever, and it's only the male character that comes to save her. It's like, it's a much better situation. It's way funnier, way better written. That it's just a guy that's an idiot, and then she like totally calls him on it, and then even like tries to like support him sort of, because she's a decent person, and just tries to support everybody at the end. It ended way better than it could have.
Yeah. So.
Right.
And I mean, I'm not gonna argue that. I mean, it was like, it could have been done without it, like, maybe.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like,
the way it was done.
Done, I don't feel like that was there. There was so many bad ways that could have gone.
And the character's agency was never really necessarily taken away from her, which was good for a main character. Just a main character in general, that's good. Unless you're trying to drive home a point of like isolation and fear or something like that. But in this case, that's not what this show's going for.
Yeah. It's funny. That was one of the few scenes that I actually remembered, was that scene from 2 and 3.
Oh, from the first time you watched this?
Yeah. And I was a little nervous because I had no idea how you guys were going to react to that. Yeah, it just, I didn't really remember how the scene fully played out, so I was just.
It was a little awkward because I was actually in a public location.
Jesus Christ, Kyle.
In between episode 2 and 3, I was watching that, and then like the kidnapping like cliffhanger happens, and then episode 3 starts, and I was like, Matt, what the fuck are you making me watch?
Yeah,
a masterpiece.
And then it actually ended up totally okay, and I was like, whew, okay, thank goodness.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, I was a little nervous because, like you said, that was the end of episode 2.
Yeah.
Like, I hadn't fully got like the full feel of the show yet, because it takes more than like 2 episodes to actually have a decent understanding of the direction the show is going to take. So I was like, is this the part where it goes weird and
Yeah,
off
it's
the
like
rails?
you keep it in the
or-
background, it's still going, but you're on Chrome, like looking up the tags for this show on Mal. You're like, is there an ecchi tag on here? Is this something I missed?
It's so interesting to hear about your experiences, because like I went in this show the first time I watched it, I went into it blind. It was like one of the, as I said earlier, it was one of the first few shows I watched.
Yeah.
Not having any idea of like what anything else is. So it's interesting to hear you guys talk about it. It sounds like you guys were expecting this twist to happen. Like,
Oh yeah,
and
I
when
was
this show
expecting this to
started-
go real dark. I don't know why. Because I went in blind, but for some reason with the preset in my head of this is going to be a dark show, I don't know why.
Like,
I think that's interesting.
I didn't expect it at all to go dark. I was just like, well, this could go weird. I don't think it's going to.
And maybe it was
but it
because
could.
in my mind I was getting flashbacks to Nobody Knows, and I just started like going, please no, please, I don't want to cry. Which is a great movie, but gosh dang. I got a little bit of that feeling from the first episode, and so that's why I think I kind of had this feeling of this could go really dark, and I kept feeling like it was going to, but after like by the time that we get that answer to the cliffhanger in episode 2, in which episode 3 starts up and she's helping him like tie the ropes, I'm like, okay, this is clearly not going to be like that. At that point, I think I had pegged the tone for what it is, and I was like, all right, I think I kind of understand what this show's doing.
Yeah, that scene. For some reason, that scene still sticks out to me. It's very strange in a very strange way.
I guess it's a great way to get your interest if they didn't quite sell you on the first episode, maybe.
I would not phrase it that way, but okay.
Well, I just mean it's like it's a great way to keep somebody watching, because episode 2 ends.
Keeps it lively.
Because episode 2 ends, and you're like, what the fuck? And then you go into episode 3, and the answer to episode 2 is really funny. And so I think that's what worked for me and sold me on the show. Because by the time that episode 3 ends, I felt like I was like, okay, no, I think I'm gonna enjoy this show. It was a very nice, because by the end of episode 3, it was a very nice feeling of that like hilarity and comedy, but also there was some drama mixed in there as well, which I thought was pretty well done. So
yeah,
but drama within moderation.
Drama within moderation, absolutely.
Yeah, and I definitely liked that trauma and moderation theme was kind of carried out throughout the entire show.
Yeah, it didn't get crazy with it. Which I makes me wonder. Before we started the podcast, Matt, you said that when this show came out, it was a lot of people, or not a lot of people, but like it was like split. Some people liking this show and some people not.
It was really weird, because when I was going through like blogs and people were like, I saw some airing posts. It was interesting. Since it was aired in like 2011, there's still like blogs alive that have like full episodic reviews.
That's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, and there was a lot of people that were there. There was a bunch of both sides. I saw posts from, "Is this the next Evangelion?" to I'm dead serious.
Be a joke.
No, I saw 3 separate posts about that from 3 different people. It's the death of 4 girl shows.
Welcome to the origins of clickbaiting.
God almighty.
That's what people were saying. It's the Evangelion for 4 girl shows. Apparently, people were like, the 4 girl slice of life anime came into existence and then was immediately destroyed 3 seasons later.
Is that like saying?
story.
Is that like saying, dude? That's the Dark Souls of Mario games, or like something like that?
Yes, that would be the equivalent. I'm serious. You can go find those posts. I might even link them in the description. I don't know.
Gosh. And then there were
But-
also a ton of people hating on it as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that were like, "Oh, I don't like this," or they were complaining. There was the one guy that said it was literally Hot Springs episodes for all 26 episodes.
All right, but if it's well written, does that matter?
Yeah, it's just there was stuff like that, and then there were other people that were like, I don't know, like every episode's like hit or miss. Like I don't understand what the show's trying to do. Like I guess they didn't like the varied tones that were going on with each episode. Kind of has its own story,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of things that you could be like on. Like there are episodes that you could be just like, oh, okay, well that was an episode, and then
Yeah, I guess
other
if
episodes
it's,
you'd be like, oh, that's a good episode. If
yeah.
you're looking for a particular element, like
I guess
if
so,
you
yeah.
wanted to focus on romance, then like certain episodes just aren't going to do it because you're like, well, that doesn't progress what I'm thinking or what I
Right.
want the show to do, you know.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that as well.
Especially because I thought that the romance was very well done because it was a nice slow burn for most of the show. It never got too outlandish or crazy. And any time that a major event did happen in one of the different romances that were going on, it felt natural and it didn't feel like suddenly popped in there or anything like that. I don't know. I appreciated that a lot more from the writing. But yeah, sorry, you go, you keep going.
Oh yeah, and like there were just people that just didn't like certain aspects of the show, and I guess, and there are people that just don't like Mario Kata's writing anyway for unfathomable reasons. I don't even know why.
I've heard of specific high profile people having just kind of a hate towards her for some reason that makes no sense to me.
And-
Especially whenever she's done so many varied works that aren't in any way similar to each other.
Yeah, like this work is not similar to Kiznaiver or even
No.
Sakura So.
No.
Like even like think about it. Sakura So also takes place in kind of like an in-dorm sort of thing. And that was a completely different show than this one.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
And-
that makes no damn sense to me.
It's I don't know, I guess people just they didn't like it was trying to do so many things, I guess. But that's the reason I like the show. So
Different strokes, for different folks, man.
I guess so. When you initially said it to me, I was a little bit annoyed because it sounded like people were just like had some deep seated hate for the show, like inexplicable deep seated hate, and that just rubbed me the wrong way because I'm like, I mean, to me, it's like if someone was like, "Dude, I fucking hate that Mr. Rogers guy. He's such an asshole," and it's like, how? Like what? That doesn't make any sense. It's like, to me, it's similar in that same way because like Mr. Rogers is just a genuine and like inoffensive guy in the most positive connotation, and it's kind of the same thing with this show. It's not that it's amazing on so many different levels. It's just a pretty good show, and it just doesn't really do anything that would offend. So I don't know why people would just be really, really spiteful towards it.
Because people can find reasons to be spiteful
I guess
for
so.
anything.
yeah. There were some complaints that it's Moe. What? That's still dumb. That's still dumb.
Welcome
But
to 2011.
yeah, that's 2011 for you.
And welcome to 2017. People are still complaining about mine.
Yeah, I know.
It's strange that people have been
Nothing
saying
has
for
fucking changed.
probably
Are they
over
done?
15 years. People have been complaining. More than 15 years, people have been complaining that Moe will be the death of anime. And it's weird because anime is still growing and is actually a much better industry than what it was. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Stop complaining about Moe.
Anyways, this was a good show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I deeply enjoyed it.
Yeah.
This is another one of those things where I feel like I could talk about the show for a very long time, not necessarily for things that the show itself exclusively does, but
Mhm.
it brings up a lot of interesting topics that expand out into the real world that you can just have a
Yeah.
conversation about by itself.
I also like, by the way, this show did something that I've tended to start enjoying a little bit more recently, which is shows that technically end on their second to last episode, and so the last episode is just a really nice wrap up, just a really nice, hits all the emotional stuff it wants to hit, wraps everything up really well kind of situation. I was like, yeah. I
Ties
like
up the loose ends in the last episode,
Yeah.
and then
Mhm.
I like that the story is written well enough in which like they can basically wrap up all the major plot points the second to last episode, which leads to the last episode as like a nice little good farewell and goodbye for the series.
yeah, and this series definitely did that.
Oh gosh,
The
it
first
was
time
kind
I
of
wa-
goofy.
the-
I started tearing up a little bit. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
it's so good.
the first time I watched this series, yeah, I did. The last episode, I cried. I was like, no,
It's so
This is-
great. It hits a nostalgia bug in you, and then it also hits a couple of like not gut punches, but just nice little like emotional pushes of just like the grandma saying goodbye to the place and seeing everybody walking through it, or remembering
that
that.
hurt.
Yeah, and then she sees her
Oof, that hurt a
husband
lot.
who passed away that she started the whole inn with, and I'm like, oh. And then she shares immediately after that. She shares the moment with Ohana, her granddaughter, who promises to take care of the inn for her, and I'm like, oh, so good.
yeah, it's just a nice solid ending that
Yeah.
it's just like gives you the little. It's not even like sad. Well, it is sad in some ways, but it's also like
bittersweet.
happy. Yeah, there you go. That's the word I was
That's
looking
the
for.
word.
Yeah, and I love that it had the capability, because it wrapped most things up last episode, to just spend the full 23 minutes doing that. I was like,
Yeah.
nice.
Absolutely.
And
I'm glad we got to watch the show.
Yeah, hey,
Yeah,
speaking
you
good.
both.
speaking of endings, anything else you guys want to say?
Nah, not in particular.
No, I think we covered
Yeah,
it.
I'm good.
I could use a bath.
Seriously,
Some hot springs.
I after having been in an actual like natural hot spring, I was like, oh man, I want to go back. That's just what I kept thinking for the show.
Never been to one.
It's good. You should try it. Anyways, I guess we'll see everybody next time. Bye.
See you later.
Bye.
We fucking forgot to say fest it up
We did.
and
Fuck.
just despairing over this shit.
I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. I
How the
wrote it
fuck-
down.
Like,
I
how the
wrote
fuck
down
did
to say it.
not a single one of us say fucking fest it up?